Computer here. So, all right, welcome everybody. Glad you guys are here. We're going to talk about bringing the temperature down, not feeling like the whole house is on fire, taking a step back, taking deep breaths, looking at the big picture. I have a framework for us today that I think is useful for the big picture. Some of you might agree and some of you might not, and that's okay. I'm totally fine with reasonable disagreement. And in fact, one of my big things is about how we should be getting out of our bubbles and not only listen to the people we agree with. I think that's been part of the problem over the last, certainly over the last 10 years, maybe the last 20, right? So I appreciate you guys all being here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ian Foster. I spent 2 decades as a government tax lawyer. The last 7 years, I've been in private practice serving the transformational industry, coaches, healers, speakers, authors, that sort of thing. So welcome to the new folks who have not been with me before, and welcome to my familiar faces who have been part of my community for a while. I'm grateful for all of it, and I love to see you all. And really, when I say I love to see you all, I tell you what, we got to love, right? I think we're short on love right now, and I understand it. And I'm finding right now, maybe you guys are seeing it's becoming very easy to love the people who are saying and thinking the same thing you are, and it's becoming a little harder to love the people who are not saying and thinking what you are. And it's okay to admit that. That's human. We're a tribal species. There ain't nothing wrong with admitting that. At the same time, um, hate and meanness and unkindness, those are not going to fix anything we're talking about. Kindness and love. And I, for one, refuse to give up kindness and love. I refuse to give up kindness and love. I don't know about you guys. I won't do it. The world right now wants us to give up kindness and love and go back to opposition and division. And I refuse. I fucking refuse. Kindness and love are going to be my mantra from here on out every day. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but that's the decision I'm making. That's what I'm doing. All right. So let's get into it. We're going to be doing a little mindfulness, a little grounding before we get into things. Okay. Those of you who are familiar with me, you know I'm fairly informal. If you have stuff, drop it in the chat. I'll get to it as and when I can, or just raise your hand. Do the little raisey handy thingy, and let's take care of questions and comments when they come up. And I hope that today is interactive and we have lots of sharing. I think we're going to do a lot better if we are interacting today. We're all going to get a lot more value out of this today, and this is definitely going to be one of those things where you're going to get out of it what you put into it. All right. So let's talk about the big picture and conversely, the small steps that we can take in our daily lives so that we don't have to be overwhelmed. What are we going to do today? We're going to work through our own emotions and grounding into our source energy. Now, a lot of you are in the healing and coaching industries. Do you guys know? You guys understand why I'm saying that? Right? We're going to have to work through our emotions and ground into our energy. Otherwise, none of this is going to matter. Then we're going to walk through what I think is a useful big picture framework that gives us context for a lot of what's happening right now and helps us understand how to focus on the most important things. And then we're going to brainstorm the small steps we can take in our daily lives that can make a difference. Nobody's asking you to change the whole world right now, but maybe we can take some small steps, each of us in our daily lives, that actually work. So, if you want to raise your hand, that's fine. Or if you just want to drop it in the chat, I want you to vomit on me right now. Verbally vomit on me. Because you've got to do your verbal vomiting somewhere. Might as well be here with me in a loving, supportive community. How are you feeling? The emotions, the feelings, whatever. Drop it in the chat or you raise your hand. Natalia, yeah.
I think that like a lot of people, I'm feeling sometimes what's coming through does feel overwhelming. There's a lot of uncertainty. And it's both because of what it means. I'm a public health nurse, so what it means for my clients, especially with budget freezes and other things as a public health nurse working for the city,
Mhm.
and what it means, for my own work, both as head of household and just for my community. So,
Yeah, right. So you're thinking about how it affects those around you, right? And one thing we're going to talk about today is that for those of us who have clients we help, you might agree with some of what you're seeing and disagree with other things you're seeing, and that's okay. We're fine with disagreement here today. And in fact, if you're not fine with disagreement here today, please get fine with it because there may be some, and that's a good thing. Um, but it's all of our jobs to be there for our clients and our community because there are going to be people who are traumatized by all of this, right? What do we got in here? Oh, Elaine, I love it. Don't give up kindness and love, but stand and fight. And that I actually, Elaine, I love the way you said that, right? Like I said, I am not giving up kindness and love. I am committed to kindness and love. That doesn't mean I won't fight for the things I care about. You can be kind and loving and still fight. Liz, scared shitless. How about that for honest, right? Overwhelmed, disgusted, disbelief. Leslie, frustrated, angry, frightened, ashamed. Oh, and you're right, Leslie, pulling back is not going to accomplish anything. Marty, a Canadian living in Texas. Man, yeah. mm, I told y'all we got some Canadian friends on here. Show some love to our Canadian friends. And again, our Canadian friends, um, some of us didn't want this. David, scared our government is being dismantled. Yeah. There's some fear. Yeah, Laura, USAID. USAID has just been dismantled. And I will just say, as a legal matter, if you guys have legal questions, that's fine. The dismantling of USAID is completely unconstitutional and illegal. At the same time, it appears to have happened, and I'm not really sure that there's much to do about it. So we'll see. Pat, disgusted, overwhelmed, scared. Yeah. All right, Katie. Yeah, Katie, let me have it.
Yeah, well, and I love not that you mentioned the Canadian thing because this is yeah, I mean I got a message from someone that I know in Canada that just sort of came out of the blue and she was like ranting and and as if like I wanted this or something like, and I'm thinking, oh my God, like just remember there are a lot of people in this country that are just as upset and freaked out as you are. And then I was also on a business call last night and I saw that people were putting in the chat like, well, is this company owned 100% in Canada? Because I'm not going to buy anything. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's already going there where people, even on a personal level, are like, and she even said to me, like, if you want to unfriend me on Facebook, that's fine. And I said, why would I unfriend you for Trump's policies that I don't even fucking agree with. Anyway, excuse my
Mhm.
language. I'm just so, but like you said, this is one of those things that freaks me out because not only does it affect us on our business, everything, it's going to affect everything.
Mhm.
Like I said, everyone's going to feel this and everyone I think is going to suffer from it. No matter, but what really gets me is that I realize that, wow, he's winning in more ways than one. When he says, I'm going to win, what he wants to do is divide us all up and us hate each other. And that's happening. Like,
Mhm.
even with people, like, why did this person, reach out to me? I love Canadians. I love all my friends. I mean, it just makes me ill. And she's like, well, I'm just trying to be prudent. And my daughter lives in the US and she's scared as hell. She has to walk around with her green card even when she goes jogging. And I'm like, yeah, this is horrible. This is totally horrible.
Yeah.
And then I realized she said the Canadian dollar tanked, and I thought, yeah, well, like if you have customers, if you have clients that are in the US, they're going to say, now I can't afford your services. And I
Mhm.
don't, there's just anyway, my vomit here this morning is I am trying to protect myself, my health, that I can't,
Mhm.
go in a total top spin about this. But on the other hand, we can't just blindly let this happen either. So I don't
Yeah.
really know what we're gonna do, but we can't just let democracy die. It's pretty
It's
crazy.
okay, Katie. We're going to talk about that today. And Katie, you're always allowed to say fuck on my webinars. You know that. Um, I do not stand on formality, and I cuss like a sailor, so it's all good. Don't worry about it, Katie. Thank you. And for you, what you do, Katie, there were for 48 hours, there were people who lost their cancer medication, which is nuts to me. Absolutely nuts. Now, some of that seems to have been fixed, thank God. But that was, I can't imagine how scary that was for the folks who lost their cancer meds for 48 hours last week.
Oh yeah. I have so many people that were freaking out even with the thought of him coming because they were afraid of exactly what is happening, right? I mean, he
Yeah,
immediately got rid of all funding and whatever. That's one thing, but yeah, like people's life, I mean, yeah, their lives are actually at stake here. He's playing with people's lives in
yeah,
so many lives.
for
It's
sure.
scary.
Let me see. I thought I saw Lauren. Lauren, are you still here? Oh, your hand went down. Sorry, Lauren. I want you to let me have it if you're here, if you're still able to join. Lauren is one of our attorneys from Canada. Are you still there? Maybe she had to hop off. All right, we'll come back if Lauren getting
Sorry,
back on.
I am here.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
oh yeah,
Hi,
Lauren.
sorry,
Let's do
I
it.
keep getting knocked off. I'm sitting in carpool, and yes, I am originally from Canada, but I live in South Florida, and
Mm-hmm,
90% of my clients are Canadian, and I feel like after October 7th, everything for me was very mobilized because I'm very, very pro-Israel Zionist, and
mm-hmm.
now I'm being attacked for this, and I don't have anything to do with it. And I mean, my mom is mad at me. My mom, I'm like, mom, like I happen to be American. Like, does I'm not responsible. My mom's like, I'm never coming to see your son and you again. I'm like, mom, like
Oh,
really, just like people are scared. And
mm-hmm. Uh-oh. Yeah, sorry. We can see Lauren's in her car. Lauren's amazing. She's a big time international lawyer. I'm glad she was able to join, as she said, originally from Canada, now living in the US. So that's a rough place to be. I have heard several of my American friends who are Canadian born. Um, it, I don't know. I don't even know. I don't know. Liz, yeah.
What I struggle with all this stuff, but
Hmm.
I do have like a really good friend who voted for the person who's implementing all this stuff.
Hmm.
And I'll give her kudos because the day after the election, she was the one I called and said, I'm freaking out right now.
Yeah.
And she voted for him, but she calmed me down. So I struggle with this, knowing what a kind, generous, wonderful person she is over the price of eggs.
Uh, yeah.
And by the way, eggs aren't down.
No, and the price of
But
eggs are
that was
because
the whole
of,
thing. Is the economy is bad.
yeah.
But look beyond. Look what you brought. I mean, so I struggle
it's
with that whole. I love her dearly, and I try and let that part of it go. And it's hard. It's hard.
I probably can't get into detail today on it, but I literally, some of you, in fact, a couple of you who are here have been through my critical thinking course. And that's literally what we talk about is how can you and your close friend or loved one have such competing values? And how does that happen? And how do you love each other? And how do you understand? Well, I literally run a 10-week course on understanding that. So
Well, that's the
maybe I
thing.
should
I
run
don't
it.
think we actually have competing values. I think she's uninformed. I think a lot of people just didn't bother to look beyond and see what could happen. They saw one thing and
Maybe.
that's so I don't because when I talk, I mean, if she had different values than me at the core, I don't think we'd be good friends. But it
I
still
don't know.
bothers me.
Maybe, maybe not. I had not planned to run that course again this year, and now I'm think I need to do it again sooner rather than later. So But it's a lot of what we do in that course is how do you understand and communicate? How do you check yourself? How do you watch the things you're saying before you start judging the things other people are saying? I mean, it's a lot of what we talk about. I'm loving the chat. I've been checking it out. I can't address everything in there. I appreciate everybody's putting. Again, this is live stream on Facebook and the recording will go on YouTube. So if there's stuff you don't want to share publicly, put it in the chat and everybody support one another in the chat as I can see you all are doing. So I appreciate that. So thanks for sharing how you're feeling. Now, look, we're a lot of us are in various forms of the healing industry, healing coaching, whatever you want to name it. So you know you got to feel it to heal it, right? If you push it down, shove it down, way down, doesn't work. Or if you're just spewing it constantly to everybody everywhere, it doesn't work, right? This is a safe environment today. Today is a safe environment to feel it, to spew it, to do that verbal vomit, get it out in a loving community today. All right, now I want to center ourselves and find our peace. Now, that picture I put up there, I left deliberately blurry because you could interpret it as a sunset. I choose personally to interpret it as a sunrise. I am choosing to see a new day with a blank slate where I have work to do and a difference to make. So I'm going to see it as a sunrise. All right, so let's start to center ourselves after feeling those feelings. You can do your tapping, you can do your pendulums. Lately, I've been putting my hand on my heart. So if you want to put your hand on your heart or your tap or whatever you want to do, if you want to take that deep breath, and I'm going to take that deep breath in between everything I say because our nervous systems are on high alert right now. Right? You guys feel that? Do you feel how your nervous systems have been on high alert? Would you like to bring that down? Can we bring down our nervous systems so that we can think through things and talk through things and concentrate on love and kindness? Keep taking those deep breaths. Don't stop. Keep that hand on that heart or the tapping or whatever it is you prefer to do. Whatever works for you, it's up to you, okay? We all have different ways of doing it. Center yourself with your heart. Wherever you are, in your house, outside your car, feel your energy going down into Mother Earth. Right? And I don't care if you're a religious or an atheist or spiritual or whatever. The fact is, we all were birthed by this planet and we will all go back to this planet in not very long, right? So feel yourself grounding into the planet that birthed us and the planet that will birth future generations. It's a big solid planet down there. She's got us, okay? Mother Earth has got us. Keep taking the deep breaths. And we have ourselves. You are everything you need. And as a bonus, as you can see today, you have amazing community. People care about you and you care about them. So whatever you use to ground, keep doing it every day like we're doing right now. If you have other methods, that's fine. I prefer myself this sort of being present, grounding in the earth, being awake, paying attention, being grateful that I woke up today, being grateful that I showed up here today. This is how I do it with this sort of my own little mindfulness thing I do. And a lot of us here, a lot of us, come on, all of us here, we're going to have to take a few minutes every day to do this. Is that okay? Can you guys, I'm not saying hours. Can you spend 5 minutes every day doing this? Do you see that it might help? Can you feel love and kindness for yourself and for those around you? Can you expand that love and kindness? Can you do what's that Hawaiian thing? I forgot the name. Hoko ono. I don't want to get it wrong. You guys know what I'm talking about? I love you. I forgive you. Thank you. Right? Put people in your mind and do that. Do it for yourself. Do it for the people around you. Do it for the people who you are most angry at right now. Lawrence, thank you. Lawrence has got it. Thank you. I can never remember the full. I have a hard time with the Hawaiian words, but you guys know what I mean. Yeah, I forgot the I'm sorry. Thank you, Leslie. Yeah, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. And you can change up the order, right? The order doesn't matter. Every day, take a few minutes, do that for yourself, do that for the people around you, and think of people who are pissing you off and do it for them. Picture them in your head and do it. Because we are not going to fix this with anger. We can fix it with action and fighting, but the action has to be based in love and a desire for everyone to have their highest good. Okay. Is that helpful? How are we doing? Is the nervous system coming down from high alert? Maybe just a little bit. We all right? We can continue. All right. Very good. All right. So I'm going to provide you what personally I think is a useful framework that gives context to basically everything we're seeing over the last few weeks and helps us figure out what the most important parts are. Now, some of you will disagree with that framework, and that's fine. Again, reasonable disagreement is totally welcome and allowed. That's okay. I just personally have seen too many parallels with the framework that I have studied myself as a former government lawyer who's done a lot of constitutional law and wrote my whole law school thesis on portions of the Constitution and democracy. Okay. So we're going to look at this framework and it's going to help us put everything in context and maybe kind of narrow down our focus on where we can have the most effect going forward. So the framework is what I'm calling the autocratic playbook. You may have heard it called the authoritarian playbook. I prefer the term right now, autocracy. It would take a while to explain that in terms of a political science, political theory standpoint. I'm going to call it the autocratic playbook for now. So we're going to list 11 common steps. I didn't make these up. These are the steps as taught by constitutional law experts who have studied autocratic takeovers in other nations. A couple of the folks I've studied have literally worked in the other nations where this has happened. Kathleen, I appreciate it. You will get the recording. I'm so glad you were here for a little while. Thank you.
Hey, baby.
This is not an exhaustive list. And the steps don't always happen in this order. They happen in lots of different orders, so that's okay. And we're going to talk about why each step is important, and we can brainstorm examples that maybe some of us are seeing of these steps in action. So one of the first steps is consolidate control of one political party. That's part of the classic autocratic playbook. Why do you guys think that's an important step for an autocratic takeover? I mean, maybe because if you have control of one party, you're sort of halfway there. Leslie, that's right. No pushback, right? You immediately have an apparatus that backs you up right off the bat, right? Natalia controlling the agenda. There you go. Now, there's probably one big example in some of our minds. Is there any recent example of an individual who has taken complete control of a major political party over the last few years? Probably I'll be thinking the same thing. Now, I will say If you do not think that Donald Trump has taken over control of the Republican Party, look at last year's Republican primary. The Republicans had an open primary with no incumbent. And there was one candidate who was twice impeached, who has been defeated, who was under multiple criminal indictments, and there was no serious challenge. There was no actual serious challenge. Marty, correct. We do not have a parliamentary system in the United States, right? In parliamentary systems work differently. It's a different sort of democracy. We're a federal republic. Other countries are a parliamentary system. Canada is an interesting hybrid of federal republican parliamentary system. Another step, you flood the political and media space with misinformation and disinformation. Why is that important? What do they get out of it? What is the point? These are things that happen in Hungary, Turkey, Russia, to some extent in Poland, although Poland is pushing back. It's happening now in India. Unfortunately, India is the world's largest democracy, and some of this is happening there. Yeah, plausible deniability, David, that's a great one. Leslie, confusion. People get tired of asking, right? We can probably think of all kinds of examples. But yeah, the point is to make it where truth is not a thing anymore. There's no such thing as truth. People get tired of trying to figuring it out. So they just don't try anymore. Right,
People are
Liz,
scared.
Yeah, Pat, scared.
I mean, I'm 82, my husband's 84.
Mm-hmm.
He's in the hospital for the rest of his life.
Mm-hmm.
Who can mess with him? Lots of people.
Yeah. He has no way to fight back. This is really key. A lot of folks don't think about this. We in the United States, we tend to think of an autocratic takeover as tanks in the streets. In reality, autocratic takeovers over the last centuries almost always, not always, but almost always involve winning a legitimate election. Viktor Orban, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Vladimir Putin, they all won their first election legitimately. Why is that important for an autocratic takeover? For them to get an election where they literally do get more votes than the other person.
Hitler did it, didn't he?
Hitler did too, yeah. Glenn, that's right. Legitimacy. Lauren, the veneer of legitimacy, right? And what is, Lauren, or Lawrence, I'm sorry, how you said the veneer of legitimacy. What is legitimacy except veneer? Legitimacy is just perception, right? David, start with truth before going to lies, confer legitimacy. Yeah. Winning that election legitimately is incredibly important. And maybe we just saw that. Oops. Another key step is getting all the corporate moguls and billionaires to become subservient to you. Why is that important to them? To get all the corporate CEOs and the billionaires behind them. Yeah, Liz, we all know what that means, right? Control, funding, money, financial support, power. Yeah. Have you seen specific examples of our billionaires becoming subservient over the last few months?
Ugh.
I just made Pat throw up. I apologize, Pat.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all of a sudden they just started altering their businesses, donating millions. Indeed. Do you think it was an accident that our president launched a crypto meme scam 3 days before his swearing in? That whole crypto meme thing he launched a few days before swearing in is nothing more than legal bribery. That's untraceable. That's all it is. Liz, yeah, they fell in line. Intimidate the press.
Yeah.
Marty, I see from your comment, yeah, suing, right? Marty, you anticipated my next thing here, intimidating the press. Why is that so important to intimidate the press?
So they don't report anything that's not what you want to get out there.
Yeah. Yeah, we called the press the fourth estate in American politics, right? Almost like a fourth branch of government. So they don't report. That's why that's important. Can you think of specific examples, even just in the last couple of weeks? Yeah, David, a free press supports truth. Glenn, bullying to get your own way.
Almost the whole Washington Post.
The Washington Post has 6 months ago I would have listed it as one of my favorite reliable sources of information. Now I would no longer include it on that list.
Yeah, there's a few that do speak out that are kind of hidden in there, but they don't. I wonder how long they'll be there.
Well, a lot have quit already. A lot of the best reporters
Oh.
have quit and gone independent to Substack. Yeah. Yeah, the lawsuits against CNN, ABC, and CBS were all entirely frivolous from a legal perspective. There was no lawyer who thought those lawsuits had any merit. But what did the companies do? Did they fight them? No, they just paid it off. CBS in particular, a bunch of people are quitting CBS. They paid it off last week, a frivolous lawsuit. Why? Because the Trump administration is going to get to tell CBS whether they can go through the merger they're trying to go through. They want to be able to do that merger and not have DOJ step in. LA Times, that's right, Katie. Yeah. Weaken the security apparatus. Why is it important to weaken the state's security apparatus? What do you think? What does the aspiring autocrat get out of weakening the security apparatus? Yeah, control, fear. Also, who is best to, who's best positioned to oppose the autocrat? Leslie, yeah, no mutiny. Yeah. The FBI and the military are best positioned to oppose. Now, have we seen real life examples over the last 2 weeks of the weakening of American security apparatus? You guys think of anything? Marty, yeah, forced resignations from the FBI. Marty, some I would say are forced resignations. Some I would say are just flat out illegal firings. Last Friday, a number of FBI agents were let out on leashes like dogs. They were just grabbed and pulled out of the building. We have had generals and admirals losing their security clearances, which is absurd. Katie, it is not legal. It is not remotely legal. The pulling of security clearances, unfortunately, probably is legal. The firing of the FBI agents is not legal. That's right, David. He demanded a list. They've come up with a list of 1,500. They're going to gut the FBI. I mean, the FBI is a good organization, but if you fire 1,500 frontline agents, do you think that's going to affect their ability to combat crime in the United States? A lot of crimes are going to go unsolved. Put loyalists in position of power. Why is that important? And what do you think I mean by loyalists? Yeah, Glenn, yes men. They won't stand up to him. Hmm. And so some of these loyalists are people who they have little or no government experience. They don't have the education or temperament for the job. They would never have made it that far up the ladder on their own. So now, when they are put in this position of massive power that they could not have gotten out of their own, who do they owe their power to?
That's
Hmm. They owe all that power to the person who gave it to them.
Can I offer a contrary?
Come on, baby.
I'll offer a contrary thing, which is if you do hire people, they do have, if they're not long-term government employees, maybe they have skills and abilities outside,
Hmm.
and they're there to shake things up and maybe dismantle certain things or change the bureaucracy of the way the government is currently running.
I would agree they are there to shake things up. You're right, baby. And change how the government. She's right there, aren't they? Aren't they there to shake things up and dismantle the bureaucracy?
Well, and is that 100% bad, or is that something that we could use for good? I don't know.
I think it depends on the person. Actually, I think an interesting example is Rex Tillerson from Trump's first term, appointed Secretary of State. No government experience, was actually a pretty effective Secretary of State who shook things up in what I thought was a reasonably positive way.
Great example, baby.
Mhm. Yes, Bob, you're right. Yeah. 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 So we've seen some examples lately. We have a Fox News weekend host who is now in charge of the most powerful military in the world. And we have a man who has literally published his enemies list in charge of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Dismantle institutions that might resist. Why is that important?
ah, get your enemies out of the way.
Hmm.
And your enemies are those who are going to stand up for the US in any ways as it's at its best, along with other people who just want to mess things up.
Well, and when we think of institutions being dismantled right now, some of them are just like NGOs, nonprofits, people who like feed poor people and make sure poor people get medicine. That's being dismantled right now. Now, here's what I really want to focus on for a few minutes. Creating outrage, deliberately creating outrage. The outrage is not a byproduct of what's happening. It's deliberate. And you do it through performative cruelty and scapegoating vulnerable people. And so I want you guys to spend a second thinking about that. Why is it important to create that outrage, and what examples can we think of? And why do you think I want to focus on this while I heat up my tea again? Sorry, my throat's been very scratchy, so I got to keep heating up the tea here.
We both caught a little bug. Absolutely, Natalia. To divide us, yes. To get us tired, exhausted, absolutely. Chaos, yep. Yeah, I don't know if everybody remembers the first Trump administration, but there was something every day and weekly, something new, something, and just the exhaustion after 4 years of always having something coming on. you know?
Mhm. Yeah, see, you all are seeing it, right? Exhaustion, infighting, division, chaos, distraction. Is it harder or easier for us to fight the takeover if we are outraged by every little daily thing? What do you think?
We're exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah, we're exhausted. Glenn, you're right. The outrage doesn't work. There you go. Leslie, our energy is zapped. David, we need to narrow our focus. Right. So last week, when Donald Trump dishonorably discharged 10,000 trans people from the military, do you think it was really about getting trans people out of the military as though they were causing harm to the military? What do you think he was really trying to do? What's the real purpose of something like that? Yeah, create division, divide and conquer. When he issued the executive order where he said that, the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution is ineffective and there's no more birthright citizenship, which was overturned within 24 hours. Did he really care that much about a few thousand kids being born in the US? Or do you think it was to get us outraged and distracted so we have a hard time organizing and doing the things we need to do? For a full day, they took the Medicaid payment portal offline. People didn't get their medicine. Providers didn't get paid. Was that because they really cared about taking away medicine? Or was it to give people something to be outraged about for a day while they did other more important things? You guys all see this? Now, have you found yourself getting outraged over these little things? I have. It's okay to say yes. It's okay to say yes, right? Bob, no, good for you. But being outraged over these little things does not help us look at the big picture. Does not help us take real action on the most important things where we can have the most effect. So one of the things I'm going to talk about today, and this is going to be the hardest part for a lot of us, and I will admit myself included, my wife's laughing upstairs because she knows it, right? Is not getting caught up in the outrage machine over every tiny thing. Glenn, there you go. Laugh it out. Yeah. So confusion and paranoia in the professional civil service and bureaucracy. That's a huge step. Putin did that. Orban did that. Erdogan did that. Why is this important? To sow confusion and paranoia in the professional bureaucracy. Yeah, Marty, there was an actual order to tell people they're supposed to report their coworkers for disloyalty. Does that sound like the United States you thought you grew up in, where you're ordered to report people for disloyalty? People have been fired for just for doing their jobs. Yeah, Glenn, I hate to say it does remind me of that. Yeah, Natalia, people losing faith in government. There's the whole, have you guys heard of the buyout order? I'm going to put it in big giant air quotes, the buyout order, because there is no buyout. There's no congressional approval. There's no appropriation. There's no buyout. It's just a way to try and get people to resign and then leave them hanging. The buyout order is flatly illegal. Katie, certainly when I was writing my thesis on political theory in 1996, I did not think we would be having this conversation in the United States. Here we are 30 years later. Glenn, I don't know. Are we surprised? I mean, kind of, yes, no. The, you know, the college kid in me that wrote a whole thesis on political theory is surprised. The law school student in me that wrote a thesis on Republican government and the Constitution is surprised. The today me is not. Does that make sense, Glenn? It's a different world. Right. So we've already talked about some of the examples. Federal workers being fired for no reason. And I'm by no reason, I mean, well, there's a reason, right? It's political reason. They're fired for no legal reason. We have illegal firings happening. We have an illegal buyout. We have them illegally being told to report their coworkers for disloyalty. Why is that illegal? Because they have First Amendment rights. That's why it's illegal. These are all flatly illegal orders. And now I will say that has nothing to do. I can say it's illegal, and that's independent of whether you think the orders are a good idea or not. If you want to talk about whether they're a good idea, that's a separate conversation, but they are illegal. You know, Matthew, that's the big question. What's the end game? I don't know that we know that yet. We can look at historical examples for an end game, right? So what we are seeing now is, gosh, I don't know. The parallels are interesting. China is not a good parallel. I would not call China an autocracy. I would call out a flat out dictatorship, full on authoritarian. Xi Jinping is the absolute ruler of the country. After that, Vladimir Putin is mostly a dictator, but then I would say that some of the best parallels are probably Viktor Orban in Hungary and Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Turkey. And we are going through everything that Hungary and Turkey went through over the last 15 years. except at an accelerated rate. Even Erdogan and Orban, they took more than a couple months to do this, or even more than a couple weeks. They took years to do what we are seeing happening in 2 weeks right now. So we're seeing it happening at an accelerated rate. So I don't know, maybe it's a little bit more like Putin, who did it accelerated in Russia after he won his first free election.
Well,
Luke,
I
no
mean,
problem.
Orban
You'll get
has
to-
been to Mar-a-Lago and hung out with Trump.
He has, and a number of Trump's advisors have cited Orban of
Mhm.
Hungary as one of their greatest influences.
Yep.
And Orban is not Orban is not a dictator in Hungary. This is why I'm using the term autocrat. A dictator has absolute control. An autocrat is someone who has made it so it's nearly impossible to transfer power from one side to another. So that's kind of where Turkey and Hungary are today.
Did you want to bring up our CEO thing that we watched yesterday?
Wait, what did we watch yesterday?
What is a CEO for a country?
Yeah, there's this random.
It was silly. Whatever.
He's a random YouTuber blogger guy who said that a country needs a CEO, and that CEO is basically a dictator. And JD Vance has listed this guy as his top influences in his political thinking. So,
And that Americans need to get over their dictator phobia.
yeah, we need to get over our dictator phobia, which is odd because the entire American ethos is built upon a violent, bloody revolution against a dictator. That's where America came from. King George was a dictator. Kings are dictators by definition. We just use the word king. King George was an absolute dictator, and America got its independence through a violent, bloody revolution that killed lots of people to get away from that. And now we have people who say we need to get over our fear of dictators. There you go. All right, so then the last thing, this is the step that is all the other steps. We're looking at 11 steps. 10 of them we looked at have already been accomplished in 2 weeks. That's why I say this is accelerated compared to what happened in other countries before. We're looking at a very accelerated timeline. 10 of those steps have done in 2 weeks. The last step is hamstring the power of and authority of the judiciary. Why would you want to do that? Why is that important? To take away the power of the judiciary. I heard a big sigh from Pat.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the whole thing because there's no recourse for the rest of us.
Yeah, because
And I
the
look at that-
judiciary,
Yeah.
the judiciary is the last bulwark against this. No checks, no accountability, no balance. You guys see it, right? No recourse, like Pat said.
Is there anyone in there who would have a little more integrity than we would think of them normally on the Republican side? What do we have? 2 Democrats?
What? Oh, are you thinking of the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
I would say, so John Roberts, I have a lot of respect for. I know a lot of my friends don't. That's fine. This is going to anger a lot of my progressive friends. I think Brett Kavanaugh is an excellent Supreme Court justice. And I know my progressive friends will disagree, and that's fine. We can disagree on that. I think he was extremely qualified. He's extremely smart. I'm not saying I like him on a personal level, but as a Supreme Court justice, he does an amazing job and writes some of the best opinions I've seen over the last few years. So Kavanaugh and Roberts, possibly, and Amy Coney Barrett has even come out now and then and stood up to things. So we'll see what happens. But here's the problem. So John Roberts as Chief Justice is in an impossible position. he is going to, in the next few months, John Roberts is going to be faced with having to decide a number of lawsuits where the legal outcome is obvious. All of these executive orders being challenged, they're illegal. They're flatly illegal. Like, it's not even a close call. We're not talking about reasonable lawyers can disagree. John Roberts will be faced with reviewing orders that are flatly illegal. And here's what John Roberts knows. If I rule against Trump on too many of these orders, he will just ignore me. Now, I want someone here to tell me, how does the Supreme Court enforce its orders? You guys know?
I was going to say a dictatorship doesn't need a Supreme Court, but
They don't. Yeah, but even Russia and Hungary and Turkey had adverse orders from the Supreme Court that they didn't follow. How does the Supreme Court enforce its orders? Do you guys know? It's a bit of a trick question. It doesn't. It has no enforcement mechanism. The Supreme Court has no mechanism by which to enforce its orders. Its only mechanism is to hope that the president follows it. That's it. The Supreme Court, they don't have police, they don't have an army, they don't have none of that. They don't have sheriffs. The Supreme Court has no mechanism to enforce its orders. And until now, its orders have been enforced only because presidents chose to follow them. Yeah, sorry, Glenn. So much for that. Presidents have, until now, over the last 240 years, chosen to follow Supreme Court orders. All it takes is for one president to say, you know what? I don't want to follow it. And then what? What's the Supreme Court going to do? It's 9 people with a staff of law clerks. That's it. So what John Roberts knows is that if he rules against Trump on too many of these orders, he'll just refuse to follow. So then John Roberts is probably thinking, do I throw Trump a bone on a couple of them? Of course, if you throw Trump a bone and uphold a couple of the orders that you know are illegal, then Trump is just emboldened to issue more illegal orders. Do you guys see any good outcome here? No, there's no good outcome here. Liz, yeah.
I was actually having a talk over the holidays with some of my neighbors about this. You know, a lot of them were like, but we have the Constitution. He has to follow the Constitution. And I had to explain to them that it's a piece of paper that we all just agree to follow. And if the person in charge and the judiciary and the military decide not to follow it, it's a piece of paper.
It's just a piece of paper. The
It
Constitution
doesn't
is a
have any
piece of
magical
paper.
power. Its power
Our
comes from us
laws.
collectively believing in what it says.
No, and I hate to say this is the 21st century, right? Where does power come from? Guns.
Yep.
That's where power comes from, guns. If you have guns and you're willing to use them, you have power. If you walk into an alley in the middle of the night and somebody confronts you with a gun, who has the power? The dude with the gun.
might is right.
It still comes down to guns after thousands of years. Swords, knives, guns. Violence is power. Pieces of paper are not power. Pieces of paper are fictions that we all agree on, like you said, Liz. We just agree that these pieces of paper have power. But as soon as one person says, you know what, I don't think that piece of paper does have power, well, then that piece of paper doesn't have power anymore. That's it. We have just agreed for 240 years that the Constitution has power. Elaine says we're fucked. Maybe, but I don't want to, I'm trying not to think that way. I will say Heather and I are the sort who prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Does that make sense? Prepare for the worst and hope for the best. All right. So speaking of what can we do, right? Preparing for the worst, hoping the best. What are some steps that are realistic and doable that we can actually do? Because if we feel like we are powerless, we're just going to give up. And look, if you want to hoard water and food and batteries, I'm not going to blame you. I'm the last person that's going to blame you for that. Okay. But personally, I'm not ready to give up. You guys know, so what I call Republican government, which is basically that's the broad political science term for self-governance, is it's the blip in the history of the world. Almost every government in the history of the world is autocratic or authoritarian. Only the occasional republic comes up. The United States right now is the world's longest living republic. You guys know that? We are the longest active republic in the history of the world, and I'm not ready to give up on it. I have devoted my career to it. I took an oath to the Constitution of the United States, and I took that oath seriously, and I'm not ready to give up. I'm going to keep working for the republic. So, some steps we can take. Make sure you're sleeping at night. Anybody been awake at night lately? I'm gonna raise my hand. Some of you, yeah. How do you productively help yourself and your clients in the country if you're up all night? It's real hard. What are some ideas? You guys have some ideas of how you can sleep better at night? Maybe it's reading a nice book, doing your meditations and your tappings and your groundings, watching a silly, stupid rom-com. I don't care what it takes. Watch a rom-com, watch Gladiator, read a book, do a meditation. You got to do something every night. You know what Heather and I have been doing every night? We're watching Terminator movies and TV shows. It's silly sci-fi, gets us out of the present. Marty, there you go. Not afternoon. Yeah. Yeah. What are you guys going to do? I want to know what everybody's going to do to sleep at night. I have been like I said, we've been watching TV shows that gets our mind off of the day, and not just off of the political day, but out of our business day and everything. So I'm not worrying about business all night and my responsibilities all night. I don't want to wake up at midnight thinking about business, politics, my responsibilities. Right? So we've been watching silly TV shows at night, and we have been listening to meditations from some of our favorite people who do meditations. I've been reading some of my favorite books that get me inspired and in a loving mood. What are you guys doing to sleep at night? To tell you, there you go. Hot tea, gratitude, and candles. How great is that? I love that. You know what else? We've been doing like a Epsom salt bath with candles at night, right? We build up these toxins all day. Pull it out. Brian, Canadian whiskey. How about? I don't drink anymore, Brian, but when I did, I was not a fan, but maybe I would be more of a fan today of Canadian whiskey. Yeah. Candles are great. Oh, there you go. Duality sessions, deep sleep. There you go. You got to sleep at night. If you are waking up at midnight, 1, 2, 3 in the morning, worrying about all this, it's going to be real hard to actually make any sort of difference and to keep yourself grounded. Katie, there you go. Body scan and meditations. Absolutely. Oh, man. Right? Got to be able to sleep at night. Now, as I'm starting, is that okay? Like, is that one step, even if you don't like anything else I say? Can you start sleeping better at night? Can you work on that? Can we do that? Can we commit to that?
I'm gonna have to go to the machine that helps you sleep. Where to get
Oh,
me down.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay, Pat. Whatever you got to do. There's
Whatever
there's 100 different ways to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is gonna be hard. That's okay. You got to be kind and loving. To who? Who do you have
Everyone.
to be kind and loving to? Everybody. Not just your community, not just your clients, not just the people with whom you agree. Kind and loving to everybody. Do you have some friends who like what's happening? I do. I have some friends who actively support what I'm seeing right now. The things that horrify me to my core. I have friends who think it's totally fine. And they don't understand why I can possibly have a problem with it. Now, is it going to help if I tell them, you motherfuckers, you assholes, this is your fault? Where's that going to get me? Or them or any of us? Or if I tell, or if my friends come to me and say, oh crap, I didn't think this would hurt me. Should I say, I told you so? I told you so is just another way of shaming people. No shame, no blame. No, I told you so. I told you so does not get you anywhere. It does not accomplish your goals. If your goal is to make change, if your goal is to make a difference, then shame and blame does not advance your goal. You guys see that? How often, when someone is shamed and blamed, do they just go, oh my gosh, you're right. Holy shit, I was wrong. Not very often, right? What are they more likely to do? If you try to shame and blame, what is somebody more likely to do? Yeah, get defensive, angry, dig in. There you go, right? There's no reason to trigger someone's defensiveness. Shame and blame is not an effective method of forming community and changing minds. So be kind and loving to everyone, no matter what. See, Katie, that's the thing. The brainwashing, if you want to think of it that way, if you want to say they've been brainwashed, it goes so deep, which means shaming and blaming them and telling them I told you so is never going to help anything. Get out of your bubble and listen to disagreement. Right? If all you see is news and posts and friends who agree with you, it's going to be real hard to figure things out. Again, isn't that what the autocrat wants, is to divide us into our little bubbles where we don't talk to each other? That's what they want. They don't want us talking to each other. There you go, Bob, the triple perception prescription. Check it out, right? Now, a couple of things I'm going to talk about in a little bit more detail, supporting journalism and getting involved in state and local politics. So when it comes to supporting journalism, there are lots of big American media companies. I'm talking about getting outside that. Journalism that is not owned by big American media corporations. There are a number of pretty good local newspapers that are not owned by big American media corporations. And the demise of local news, there are a number who theorize this. I don't, so I'm not an expert on this, right? I've read from a number of folks very convincingly who think the demise of local news is a big part of the problem we're in right now. Everything's become nationalized. So if you have an independent local newspaper that's not owned by a big company, go ahead and pay the $5 a month. Otherwise, they don't stay in business. Independent journalism, especially on Substack. Substack is an amazing resource right now for independent journalism. A lot of the most talented journalists in the world have left the big media companies and gone independent on Substack. And they can't keep doing it if people like us don't subscribe. At the very least, subscribe. And I even have several that I pay for because I am so in support of what they're doing. Those independent journalists can't exist if folks like us don't subscribe. So check out Substack. There's a lot of great nonprofit journalism out there. Two of my favorites are The Bulwark, which is more conservative leaning, and ProPublica, which is more liberal leaning. Those are two of my favorites. You can check out yours, but there's a lot of great nonprofit journalism. That nonprofit journalism, again, it only survives if folks like us subscribe to it. Otherwise, they go out of business. So again, two of my favorites are The Bulwark and ProPublica, so I get a more conservative view and a more liberal view because I don't want to stay in the bubble. Elaine, The Atlantic is a really good one. Yeah. Kristen, there you go. Street epistemology. Thank you for the free advertising, Kristen, for our critical thinking course. Yeah. Street epistemology is great. We don't have time today to go into street epistemology, but it's one of the most effective communication mechanisms I've ever learned, and I use it all the time. And then there are some media outlets that are owned by larger companies, but they're not US owned, which means they're not beholden to US interests and the US government. So two of them that are German owned, which I like, are Business Insider and Politico. And Business Insider is the more conservative and Politico is the more liberal. Those are both German owned companies that provide amazing US news, but they're not beholden to US companies. Marty, yeah, the Guardian's a good non-US one. Mm-hmm. Now, local and state politics are incredibly important. Everything has become nationalized over the last 20 years, but local and state politics still have a much bigger impact on your life than national politics do. Most of the things that you do every day are governed by local and state rules, not national rules. So start paying attention to your city council and your local boards and commissions. Go to the meetings, speak out. If you call your Congress member, that's one call among God knows how many, and it's just added to a big number. When you go to your local airport board meeting and speak out, it makes a big difference. When you go to your local city council meeting and speak out, it makes a big difference. They listen. We have to do this from the ground up. The federal government right now is on the track it's on, and I hate to say, there's not a ton to be done about it. If we start from the ground up, we can rebuild. So campaign for the local politicians who match your values. If there's a good friend of yours who's a wonderful person and heart-centered and wants to do great for your community, and they're running for city council, there you go. Make calls for them, pass out flyers for them. Put up their signs. And then above the local, pay more attention to your state legislative races. State legislatures have a lot of power under the federal Constitution in the United States. In some ways, more power than Congress. State legislatures are incredibly powerful, so pay attention to your state legislative races. And be wary of voting based on just on party on that at the state level, because you're going to find more variance among people's beliefs and attitude at the state level than you will at the federal level. And then some of your statewide races. For example, how often do you pay attention to the statewide race for Attorney General and Secretary of State? Those are people who make a massive difference in your state. your state secretary of state, your state attorney general, your state treasurer. Those people have a lot of power and make a huge difference. Pay attention to those races. David, it is good to find or it's hard to find good info on local politicians. So, David, this is part of why I say support local journalism. Look for local websites that are focused in your community, local Facebook groups that are focused in your community, and talk to your neighbors who know stuff. So I have a neighbor named Otis, who's 90 something years old, who has lived here forever, and he matches my values, and he's super involved. So he's always able to direct me in the right place, where to find things, to give me good ideas, right? There's always somebody, but you do have to kind of get out and look for it. It's not just going to come to you like the national stuff does.
Well, and maybe you have to be that person.
Yeah, maybe maybe you become that person. Maybe the more you learn, maybe by the time I'm 90, I'm the new Otis of our neighborhood. So one thing you want to think about is stocking up on some goods right now that are about to get much more expensive. Costs are about to go up. The tariffs are in place, but some of the tariffs take several weeks to trickle through, and some take several months to trickle through to the retail price. Except what happens is what we get is anticipatory inflation. You guys ever heard that? You're expecting inflation to come 3 months from now, so it happens now. Some of those goods. So, for example, if you're looking to buy a new car and you got the money and you already kind of know what you want, I would not wait, because a month from now, vehicles are going to be much more expensive than they are today. They just are, because of the tariffs. People don't realize how much the US and Canadian economies are integrated with regard to vehicle manufacturing. I mean, it's crazy. Marty, exactly. The number of times they cross the borders. And that's the point, Marty, is these tariffs are not on final products. They are on every input that comes across. Which means when you hear 25% tariff, that doesn't mean 25% on the final product. It means 25% at every stage. And that adds up exponentially. Right? Parts cross borders 5, 6, 7 times before the final product. And every time it crosses, it's 25%. So if you're looking to buy a vehicle and you know what you want, do it now, even a used vehicle, because the price of the new vehicles will trickle down to the used vehicles. It's one big market. If you want to buy a computer that has components from China, or a TV has components from China, do it now. Learn to grow your own vegetables. A couple of years ago, we did a lot of hydroponics here at home. Last year we got behind because of a lot of travel. Guess what I'm going to get started on this week? I'm setting my hydroponics up again. Vegetables are about to get very expensive. So I'm setting up my hydroponics. I have the seeds, I have the equipment, I have the lights. I'm getting back to growing my own vegetables at home. You can call and email your representatives. This can be easy. Oh, come here, sugar. Come on. There are websites and apps that help you do it in a very easy way. They give you scripts and the phone numbers and everything. Here's the thing, use your discretion when you do that. Number one, only call and email your own representatives. If you live in Nebraska, do not call representatives from Arkansas. They don't care. They don't care. Call and email only your own representatives, people you actually vote for. And don't call them about everything. If you call them about every little outrage or everything that pisses you off, it just becomes noise and they tune it out. So use your discretion and focus on things that are important. Yeah, building materials. Yeah.
Or even worse, they call you a crazy Karen.
Right. Karen, or don't be the Karen or Kevin. And I apologize to those whose names are Karen and Kevin. When I worked in the legislature, we had regulars who called about everything, and we didn't give a shit what they said because they called every day. So I just didn't care. Oh, it's Susie from wherever again, calling again today. Don't care. I just sat there with the phone off to the side while I did other work. And that's part of it, is figuring out the issues on which you can have the greatest impact. And that might be different for each of us. I've decided, at least right now for me, it's focusing on kind of some of this big picture stuff, pulling back and finding frameworks that put things in context. And even that helps me narrow it down, right? So even though I think it's absolutely awful that Trump just dishonorably discharged trans people from the military, I find it disgusting and at a visceral level. I'm not going to make an impact on that. And it's not remotely the most important thing happening. Because if autocracy takes over, then all of those little things don't matter anymore. All of our little issues that we love to talk about, right? Some of us are big, some of us, including Heather and I, because we have so many friends in the community. Heather and I love LGBTQ rights, right? Women's rights, book bannings, all this stuff. Those are all important. I'm not saying they're not important. I am saying that if we lose the right to make a difference, none of those other issues will matter anymore. They'll all be gone anyway. We have to focus on the big things. Things like a tech billionaire who has not been elected, not been appointed, not been Senate confirmed, not even employed by the government, now has absolute authority to decide who gets paid by the government and when.
Katie, it's not only the problem, it's the point.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things that we can't focus. And if they keep us all busy with all of this little, and some of it's not little, but
not little, it's big. It's all
yeah.
big. Yeah.
But then they still get to stay in charge.
Mm-hmm. If we are all focused on different issues, on our own little pet issues, and I don't mean it to sound flippant when I say your pet issue. I have my pet issues that are very important to me. Like I said, for Heather and I, LGBT rights are very important. That's a pet issue for us. Right? But it is not of the same scale as a president who can just ignore court orders at will, or a tech billionaire who can decide that government contractors don't get paid. Oh, except for his government contracts, those do get paid. Because those big things, if those go unchecked, then the rest of our issues, we lose all of them anyway. They're all gone for a generation or more. So yeah, some of these steps to reduce the financial impact of tariffs, like we talked about, if you're looking to buy our computer, do it. Grow your own veggies. Right? Maybe stock up on some things now. A lot of stuff. Food, especially. Food's going to be about to become very expensive. Oops. Sorry. Had a couple of repeated things there. So, super important. Again, stay grounded. If your nervous system's on high alert, if you are panicked running out of the flaming house, it's real hard to get anything done. This is why we talk about getting a good night's sleep. It's why we started today with some mindfulness and grounding, centering ourselves. Stay grounded. don't participate in the outrage machine. That's what the autocrat wants. The autocrat is trying to create an outrage machine so that you will be outraged all the time. If you are outraged all the time, you're doing what the autocrat wants you to do. You are helping them gain power if you are outraged all the time. This is not easy, right? Again, myself included, a bunch of us have been plenty of outraged over the last couple of weeks. It's really hard to avoid the outrage, but we have to resist that temptation to be outraged. That's what they want. Figure out the issues that are most important to the nation of your life and focus your energy where you can make a big difference in your community. Often, again, that's going to be in your state and local politics. Supporting independent journalism. Focus your attention and your energy where you can make a difference. All right, for those of you who are not on my list, I know we have some regulars, we have a bunch of new folks. If the new folks want to join my list and see more stuff like this, we're going to be talking a lot more about this as we go along. We have a free opt-in you can do where you can get on the list. Of course, you can unsubscribe at any time. It's our 5 power moves for productive thinking. It's one of our critical thinking opt-ins where it has some good tips for thinking critically. Whoops, oh, sorry. I lost it there. And you can download that. We have a bit.ly link, bit.ly/5 power moves guide is a spot to go for that. So for those who are newer and want to get on the list, that's a way. Of course, if you're already on the list and you don't have this yet, of course, please feel free. And Heather and I are starting to put together a sort of a mastermind type thing where we can talk about what we've been doing today regularly throughout the next year. How do
and we were talking about it during the political,
yes.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's still in the hopper for those of you who were listening to us months and months ago.
Yeah, right after the election, we were talking about some of this. We're still trying to figure out exactly how we want to organize it and everything. But the point, this is sort of separate from the other kind of legal and business stuff that we do together. This is about talking about this big picture stuff, making a difference, getting together and saying, what have you accomplished? What are the ideas you have? How can I help you? Here's what I figured out. Here's the resources I have. So we are still putting that together. Yeah, Glenn, there is a healthy form of anger, right? Anger is a perfectly natural part of your nervous system and how you were, right? As long as it's directed and as long as the anger doesn't turn to an outrage that keeps you distracted and panicked. Yeah. How are we doing? Any questions?
I was going to say healthy anger usually it implies that some kind of boundary or wrong has happened.
Yes.
So when it's justified anger, it tends to be because somebody crossed a boundary somewhere or did something that they shouldn't have done.
Yeah, and for me, I trained heavily in bioenergetics, which really focuses on anger. And it's where there's a misattunement or a misunderstanding. And I get really into it with the whole body and my feet stay on the ground after many years of practice. And quite often anger is followed by tears or love or, oh, I missed that or whatever. It just opens it up. But it's not, oh, you're full of shit. That's not anger. That's bullshit. Sorry, my preaching for the day.
No, I love it. That anger, it can get confused with shaming and blaming and putting people down, right? Sometimes our anger, I've seen, a lot of anger come out lately in terms of, I told you so, you voted for this, I told you this would happen, why did you do it? What's wrong? It's not gonna help. It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help us, doesn't help them, doesn't solve any problems.
Well, and so often in our society, anger has been used as a justification for bad acts.
Yep. I was such a sweet little Southern girl, and I learned bioenergetics, Gestalt, core energetics, which is from a group called Pathwork, which is little known. I can get royally angry very fast. And I'm still here. For now.
A sweet little Southern girl. There you
I
go.
love it. Pat, you're a
Yeah.
tiger. That was a comment.
Yeah.
It was great.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, look at that, Glenn. There you go. And Glenn, it's good to see you. We haven't seen you in a little while. I'm glad you were able to get on. Yeah.
Oh, wow, more messages.
Aloha.
Can we get these last couple things, please?
Yeah. So I will not be posting the chat again. The chat was just private. So if you guys want to keep the chat, please save the chat for yourselves. Only the video will be going on YouTube. So like I said, I can't promise that the world's going to be okay. I can't promise the country's going to be okay.
Yeah,
In fact, in a lot of ways, things may not be, but I can promise that we will be okay if we commit as individuals in a community being okay, right? If we commit. So thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody, for being here.
All right. Love you all. I'll see you soon.